until other people get here. So we'll go ahead and start a hearing on Senate Bill 381. We're going to go ahead and start a hearing on Senate Bill 381.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I am Senator Thompson Rehder from Southeast Missouri. Senate Bill 381. Every student is currently required to take a class called Health Education prior to graduation. This bill simply adds the word family, so the class will be Health and Family Education rather than just Health Education. The current health education class is required by the State Board of Education but is not in statute. So this bill puts it in statute and convenes a work group to establish standards that are recommended to the State Board. Over 80% of kids will grow up to be parents. While some of these classes on parenting and early childhood education are currently offered in schools, only 10% of students in Missouri are taking those classes. Rather than creating a new mandate or graduation requirement, this bill just updates an existing requirement. In summary, the State Board mandates kids take health education. We have parenting classes, but not enough kids are taking the courses. This bill attempts to merge the curriculum of both health education and parenting courses into one class in an effort to address child abuse, drugs, or other factors that lead to dysfunctional families and ultimately more kids in foster care. The contents of this bill attempts to merge the existing curriculum requirements that are forced by state regulation for both health and parenting. And it's just as simple as that. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that the House did have House Bill 883 had a really good hearing last week, and we have some great witnesses to come and testify. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, or we can get started with the witnesses.
Questions for the bill sponsor, Senator Authur.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think this is a really smart approach. Because we have talked a lot about how health encompasses so many more things beyond just being able to run a mile in under 20 minutes, in my case, I guess. So I have a question about, it says at students' grade level. Can you remind me, I think health is K through 12, is that right? Or when do you expect that the family education will be part of every grade level or targeted at the older kids?
This is, and unless a witness that knows more about this explains it differently, to my understanding, this is just taking that credit that kids need for graduation, so they're 9th through 12th grade.
Okay.
And encompasses the health portion with the parenting portion with the health.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, I like your bill. I appreciate you sponsoring it. Thanks.
Senator Gannon.
Senator, is this an elective for like a full semester?
It is not. This is just that credit that's required for graduation.
Oh, okay.
In health. It just makes that credit also cover parenting.
Okay, so do they take it a full semester? Do they take it? Do they take it part of PE class or?
The curriculum that's currently for health that you take between 9th and 12th grade, it would establish a group to change that curriculum to add in some of the parenting skills.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? Anybody testifying in support of Senate Bill 381?
Good morning. I want to thank Senator Thompson Rehder for bringing this COPE stands for Changing Our Parenting Experience in 24 hours and 24 hours a day. We were established in 2009, and I have spent the last 15 years working directly with family and consumer science teachers across the state of Missouri, and then it became nationwide. So I had to establish a nonprofit to even make that possible. I spent 6 years speaking in schools across the state of Missouri in these parenting, child development, family relations, adult living classes, getting to know these teachers and knowing the curriculum. At the same time, I had been appointed to Missouri's Task Force on Children's Justice, known as the CJA. A subcommittee of that committee is the Critical Event Review Committee, which I sat on, and we were giving cases that happened here in Missouri where the worst possible outcome happened. A child had died or been left so severely injured they may never be healthy again. And the state of Missouri and the federal government was asking us to review these cases and look for systemic problems and make recommendations for changes. I wrote the report for that committee. I started serving on the task force in 2008 and termed out in February of 2020, which worked out really well for me because COVID hit a couple weeks later. So I served for 12 years. I'd like you to know that when I started serving in 2008, Missouri had a little over 9,000 children in foster care. We now have well over 14,000. So we are not getting better, we're getting worse. I came into this field of work because of a situation that happened to my husband and I, where 2 children landed on our doorstep in 1999 on Christmas Eve night. And we would spend the next 7 years of our life fighting for those 2 kids, covering 2 states and 5 jurisdictions. We fostered them on 3 different occasions for extended periods of time. And so we were in and out of the family courts and dealing with caseworkers and pretty much just became yes people. Not understanding, we'd leave hearings saying, how was any of this in the best interest of these kids? But we did what we were told to do. And when that sort of ended, I was on mission to do 2 things. I needed to better understand Children's Division and the policies that they have to work within, and I needed a solution because I knew we could do better. And so that's why I was doing all of this work. This idea for this class came about because of all of that work. I want to say, since it popped into my mind, thank you all for any role that you may have played in funding Children's Division the way that they have been funded this year. They are completely overwhelmed, and it's going to take years for them to dig out. I don't find, based on what I know, that the problem that we have with our kids, something that's their fault. I don't think it's the family court's fault. Our families are in crisis. And who are the leaders of the family? The parents. And so what I'm saying is, while the state is doing the best that they can do with the problems that already exist, we can be getting out in front of this and making this kind of education a priority. We know that more than 80% of our high school kids are going to become parents. And yet only 10% of them will elect to take these kind of courses that the FACS department offers. So this attempt at this class is taking the most important pieces from health and the pieces from parenting and the pieces from child development and merging it into one course that would be a semester course, like the health class is now. The students take it in high school, and that would be our effort to try and get out in front of this and start reducing these problems. And I think the last argument I would like to make is this isn't just about child abuse and neglect and family dysfunction. When I was in this classes speaking, I would say to students, every presentation I gave, if this is you, if you go to your bedroom at night and say to your children, or say to yourself, I'm never going to treat my children the way I was just treated. I'm never going to talk to them like that, belittle them, call them those names, touch them, hit them. That's a great first step. But then you have to ask yourself, what will you do? Because the things that you do that make your parents come unglued, all kids do. All babies cry, they throw tantrums, they need to be potty trained, they don't want to go to bed, they don't want to go to school, they don't want to do their homework, they don't want to do their chores, and they're all going to lie to you. And since we know that, we can be preparing them and we can give them a skill set that maybe nobody took the time to give to their parents to try and break that generational family cycle of dysfunction. That's what we're trying to do in this. Most of the serious social issues that we face in this nation, from crime, imprisonment, mental health, addiction, poverty, homelessness, domestic violence, more than 70% of the people that fall into those categories came from the dysfunctional family. So our intent is not just about child abuse and neglect and family dysfunction, it's really all of those social issues as well. So if you have any questions for me?
Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Anybody else testify in support of Senate Bill 381? Please come forward. Anybody testify in opposition to Senate Bill 381?
Good morning. My name is Jerry Hockman. I am a former teacher, principal, and superintendent for over 40 years, have served in state government, and have worked in education in other capacity. Mr. Chairperson and members of this Senate committee, I oppose Senate Bill 381 because it is duplicative and usurps existing policy and practice, and it opens the door for a narrow focus on complex concepts, or as the bill cites, aspects, as they are called. I recognize and respect the necessity for an assertive health education program, but I have concerns about the bill. Missouri already has a comprehensive health education program written using a curriculum process already established in state and local school boards. Missouri health education curriculum is guided by state and federal mandates, for example, safety prevention, CPR, and others. Missouri already convenes work groups with educators and experts to ensure objective, evidence-based recommendations. Missouri's health curriculum addresses the numerous challenging topics cited in this bill, and should be allowed to continue to do so to ensure that they are based on science and they are data-driven and not religious, dismissive, or other concepts. And Missouri school districts already include staff, parents, and community members in the curriculum process, and parents already have the right to examine curriculum and resources. For these reasons alone, this bill is unnecessary. As a longtime educator, I trust teachers and curriculum leaders, superintendents, administrators, and objective school boards. DESE and content area experts are trusted, and parents are trusted to do what is best for children. Sure, there are outliers. More scripted laws will not prevent every misstep. We deal with that. Yet this bill is vague and general in some areas, and yet appears to cherry pick or attempt to script key aspects to include or omit. For example, the focus on parenting in this bill is absolutely necessary for students to understand the reality, the wonderful moments, and the challenging moments of being a parent, especially in this ever-changing world of technology, media bombardment, and unmonitored social media use. However, the bill includes, I quote, family structure to be taught. What exactly is family structure you would include in this law? Family is not a function of government. Fortunately, school districts must have a highly scrutinized RFP process for agency partnerships. Will this bill include guardrails to assure the selection or direction of the advisory committee? Or approved vendor partners will not incorporate religion, inaccurate terminology, offensive language, and other isolating constructs in the standards that they propose? Causes of morbidity rates is included in this bill. Will this reference Missouri's population diversity and the proliferation of some diseases in protected groups? Will other legislation that's being proposed here prohibit this from being taught? Will agencies and hospital partners ensure those providing medical and scientific advice have been trained, are aware and sensitive to these statistics. Causes of mortality rate of youth is included in this bill. Will the leading cause of death in children, guns, and gun culture, be included in the curriculum? Missouri has and will forever need a direct, evidence-based, informed, and informative health curriculum. Wraparound services, health education, community education are proven practices to support the parents, children, and future parents for the reasons cited in the previous testimony as needs. However, again, parenting and other important topics are already in the curriculum. There is no compelling reason to change the proven practice of development in Missouri. Thank you very much.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony here this
Thank you, sir.
morning. Further opponents to testify? Seeing none, anyone here to testify for informational purposes only?
All right, that concludes our hearing on Senate Bill 381. We will move to Senate Bill 363.
Good morning. I'm Steve Roberts, State Senator from Missouri's 5th District in the city of St. Louis, and I'd like to thank the chair and the members of this committee for affording me the opportunity to present Senate Bill 363. This bill specifies that the St. Louis City School Board shall fill any vacancy that occurs in such school board outside of the normal election cycle. The committee sub makes the necessary changes for Kansas City School Board when there is a vacancy as well. These changes have been requested by both the St. Louis Public Schools and the Kansas City Public Schools, which desire to have a little more control over their boards and put them in line with every other school district in Missouri. I have representatives here from both schools.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, anybody testify in support Senate Bill 363?
Good morning. I'm the Vice President of St. Louis Public Schools Board. This bill is definitely needed. We have been faced with several challenges, and is more so the stagnant that we're faced with when we're dealing with the positions if they're open. What we find often is the job of the mayor's office is very tedious. They're actually struggling to try to fill other commission seats that are out there. We have over 100 and some odd commissions that's open, and a lot of those have yet to be filled. This isn't more so a power struggle between the two entities, but it's basically us taking on the responsibilities that we need to be taking on. What we found in the past is that we've had 2 or 3 positions, school board positions, that have been open, and it's taken 6 to 7 months for those positions to be filled or appointed by the mayor's office. And that brings stagnant issues for us. We're trying to actually conduct business, and if we don't have the adequate amount of board members sitting there getting business done, then we won't be able to move forward and get a lot of the things that we're trying to get handled within the district. So we're just asking and supporting a bill of this nature, because if we don't have it, it's constantly hindering us as a district, as a board, and trying to take care of the business that we need to be taking care of.
Questions for Senator Beck?
So, to be clear, good morning. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
To be clear, you just want the same rights as about every other 500 boards in the state to be able to make these decisions on their own.
Yes, sir. What we're finding, as Senator Roberts has stated, is this is just what's happening with St. Louis Public School and Kansas school districts, but we are finding that other districts around us have the ability to do this, where the mayors or the county elects do not actually appoint anyone to their boards.
And speaking as a board member, we've used this
Yes,
process
sir.
before, and actually, I failed to get the interview and get on the board during this process, so I think it's a fair process. So, but well, it's a good bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to support Senate Bill 363?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We appreciate the Senator for sponsoring this legislation and adding the Kansas City School District into his committee substitute. For our district, it's a matter of getting those savings where school districts are allowed to appoint when there's a vacancy. We are required under current law to run a special election. That can cost anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000, which I think we can all think of better uses for those resources inside of a classroom than for a special election to fill out what could be a very short term remaining on that vacancy. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in support of Senate Bill 363? Anybody testify in opposition to Senate Bill 363? Anybody testify for informational purposes only? All right.
Thank you.
We will now move to, we're going to, next two bills we're going to hear together, Senate Bill 827 and Senate Bill 545. So, Christofanelli, Representative, if you can come forward. And on witnesses, if you can, any witnesses coming forward, if they can testify on both of these, we will, if Senator Rowden is not here, we will go ahead and proceed with the support and opposition testimony, and then when he gets here, we will have him jump in.
Good morning, members of the committee. Phil Christofanelli here from the 104th District to present House Bill 827. House Bill 827 is a follow-up to a virtual bill that we passed last year. I think it passed both through the House and Senate Education Committees and ultimately was amended on to the charter funding bill that made its way to the governor's desk last year. The goal of that legislation was to address what we call the gatekeeper problem in virtual education. As I'm sure you're aware, Missouri has a full-time virtual option for students who wish to enroll in these type of programs. The virtual providers partner with a Missouri school district to offer a full-time curriculum for their students, and then the students anywhere in the state of Missouri can enroll in those programs. The problem we saw in the past is that the resident district, the district that the student was currently enrolled in, would often deny the students a choice to enroll in the full-time virtual program for various reasons based off of language that was in the old text. And so we drafted legislation to address that problem. And our intent with that legislation was to make clear that it was the parent that would decide whether full-time virtual was in the best interest of the child, not the resident school district. Unfortunately, after we passed that legislation and the rules were promulgated by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to implement the legislation that we passed, we ended up with a system that was still not corresponding with what I believe the legislature intended when we passed the virtual bill last year. And so I have offered this bill in order to clear up any discrepancy that may exist between our intent and what the bureaucracy has implemented. And it does that in three ways. First, it makes clear that when virtual providers are paid, they're paid on a monthly basis based off of the average daily attendance of the student in the virtual school, and it makes clear that they are not paid based off of the statute that governs course selection. So that we have if you want to take individual courses, we have a program for that, and that reimbursement schedule is governed by a separate area of the law. So we make that clear in this bill here. Secondly, we make clear that the process begins with the virtual provider that is hosted through the hosting district. So it does not begin with the resident district, as is the case in the rules that were promulgated by DESE. The process is that the student contacts the virtual provider, and they begin the enrollment process in full-time virtual school. The other area that we're clearing up deals with how DESE has interpreted a provision that deals with collaborative agreements between the host district, the virtual provider, and the resident district. In our original bill, we said that we wanted there to be collaborative agreements where it was necessary to provide for special education services. However, the way it was written and interpreted, the department has determined that we need a collaborative agreement for every student, whether or not they are on an IEP or not, and that was never our intent, nor is it helpful to the program or anyone else. So we're making clear that those collaborative agreements are only for the students with IEPs, and that is the changes that the legislation makes. It enjoyed, I want to say, universal support in the Missouri House. I don't think we've had any opposition on the House floor or in committee to date, and I know that Senator Rowden also has similar legislation that he has filed over here on the Senate side that I believe to be substantially similar to mine. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I am happy to entertain any questions.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, all right, we'll now move you can stay there for the moment. We'll go ahead and have Senator Rowden present 545.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Glad to be here today to present Senate Bill 545, which is effectively the exact same bill as what you just heard. It aims to do the same things, does it in the same ways, clean up language from what we have been trying to put in place since 17 or 18, I believe, and hopefully now with one more fix, we can get it right and get the full-time virtual program up and going the way that I think the legislature intended.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none. Please come forward for those testifying in support of these two bills, and please, on your witness form, specify that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. We speak in favor, and I have forms for both bills. We would substantially concur with the testimony from both sponsors. This committee is comprised of people who were here in the chamber on one side or the other last session, so we don't have to recreate the wheel, but as the sponsor said, that there was an effort to clarify the distinctions between the course access program and the full-time program, and that language is passed in House Bill 1552. There are a couple issues that have arisen that need to be clarified. One of them, that language had language that was speaking to a plan for students. It was really designed from the student out to make sure there was a process that considered their needs, but there was language that kind of conflated things that might be thought of as relating directly to an IEP with other peripheral needs. And so one of the important distinctions this bill makes is to pull those apart so there's clear language on both of those topics. Makes a couple of other technical fixes to really clarify what was already intended in House Bill 1552. This bill did pass the House 136-0. With that, we're in support and happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and pause and go ahead and take a roll, establish a quorum.
Chairman Koenig.
Here.
Vice Chair Bratton. Here. Senators Authur. Beck. Gannon. Here. Hoskins. Razor. Here. Schroer. Here. Trent.
All right, we have established quorum for those testifying in support of House Bill 827 and Senate Bill 545. Please come forward.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Samoy Manda, and I'm a parent. And I first would like to say thank you so much for fixing the mocap last year. My daughter, Hannah, we lived in Michigan a couple of years ago, and prior to coming to Missouri, we didn't have that option of doing virtual schooling like we did in Michigan. So I just want to first just say thank you to all the senators and reps for supporting House Bill 5052 and giving my daughter the ability to just thrive like she is this year. She has gone from just closed up like a hybrid, and now she is just talking about how she wants to be a travel nurse. She has now a YouTube channel talking about school choice. So I cannot thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for supporting the bill and passing it. So I am a supporter of this bill. Just a couple of things I would like to just say that the bill requires host schools to adopt enrollment policies regarding school enrollment, and basically just to allow when a family comes and for any reason they need another option for their student, just that the schools go with what the parents are suggesting. I have 3 kids. I have Hannah, she's 13, and Seth, he's 5, and Gabriella, she's 4, although she's going on 24. I already know that all 3 of them need something different, but that's because I live with them and I see firsthand what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And I know there's a lot of individuals that might not see this as something that we should have concern about, but we do. This is a child's education. And I just remember on last year when the governor, right before he signed the bill, and I'm paraphrasing this, but he said, I don't care what form of education a child gets, as long as they receive an education. And when he said that, I just looked at him and it just brightened up my day, because he even sees how important a child's education is. And despite the form, as long as that child gets that education and is able to thrive in that type of format, if he's not allowing them to be let down, we shouldn't let them down as well. So I just thank you and just hope that the different things that need to be fixed, just a few tweaks and stuff, I'll leave that up to y'all, no worries. I just hope that we can fix those and allow still every child to get the school choice that fits them. Thank you.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Anybody else testifying in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Brent Tempill. I'm here on behalf of Pearson Education. We are the district partner with Sturgeon. We've ran a school in Missouri for a very long time. We agree this is a cleanup legislation and happy to have you support it. Request your support for the bill. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, next witness testifying in support. Seeing none, anybody else testify in support? All right, anybody else testify in support? Anybody in opposition to Senate Bill 545 and House Bill 827? Anybody for informational purposes only? All right, that concludes our hearing on Senate Bill 545 and House Bill 827. We will now move to House Committee Substitute for House Bill 253.
Good morning, Chairman Koenig and members of the Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Brad Pollitt. I represent District 52, which is 3/4 of Pettis County, including the city of Sedalia. Today I bring before you House Committee Substitute for House Bill 253, the Public School Open Enrollment Act. I believe most of the people in this committee's heard this bill more than once. I'll just go through some of the details. Should your address be the main determination on what public district your school, your students can attend? I don't believe it should. Should the family and children be the center of the educational focus? I think it should. This bill would allow inter-district transfers within the public school system with some substantial restrictions. This is the third year I brought this bill over from the House. A number of very strong supporters for the public school system have and will continue to support this bill as it's written. There was an amendment that was put on the House floor that's problematic to some, and I know you'll hear testimony on that amendment today. 44 states have some form of policy that allows students to select and attend school districts outside their residential boundaries. The average participation rate in the Midwest is from 3 to 8%. This bill puts a cap of 3% per year from now on without any end. In this bill, districts are given the option to opt into the program. If you don't opt in, that doesn't keep students from leaving your district. It just keeps you from receiving students. The state and federal money follow the student. The local tax dollars stay local. The decision-making process stays in the hands of the receiving district. The receiving district can determine how many students they'll accept, what programs, what grades, and what buildings. It is built into the bill what I believe are reasonable timelines to follow as far as when a district says they will accept or whether they're going to participate, when the parents who want to open enroll, when theirs are due, and when districts must accept or reject the application. Once an application is received by the district, it will be timed, date, and stamped in the order they come in, and that'll be the order that they should be opened. If a student misses a deadline, they can file a good cause form for failure to miss the February 1st deadline. That could be a divorce or placement in foster care, adoption, or removal of accreditation of a district. Once a student is accepted under open enrollment, they remain in the new district until they graduate or leave. They're not required to apply again. Preference for future transfers will be given to siblings of the open enrolled students if there's room. The transfer student must stay in the non-resident district for 1 full year. Then they can return to the sending district, but must complete a full semester before they apply again. Varsity sports have been questions. That is under the control of the state organization, MISHA. I believe the bill can enhance local control by engaging the community in conversations about their districts and its program. If it's losing students to neighboring districts, or at very least, it should have already started those conversations. Transportation is addressed in the bill. I'm asking for a parent public school choice fund of $80 million that is not it's not a supplement, or it is a supplement, so it doesn't supplant present state aid. Students that have been suspended 2 or more times the previous year can be denied a placement. This bill does allow this time for their parents to appeal and have a hearing with the non-resident superintendent. If they are accepted, they can be accepted on a probationary basis. That is the only time in the bill a student is accepted on a probationary basis. Receiving districts are not required to add staff or programs to accommodate open enrollment. The 7th District Court of Appeals out of Wisconsin ruled on that in 2019. But this bill says nothing about whether a district wants to add staff or programs. They can do that if they choose. The bill requires a department or another policy development group to develop a model policy for implementation of the bill. The bill requires that the department randomly select 10% of the districts that participate to make sure they're following the model policy. If the parent choice fund is ever depleted or falls below the level of reimbursement, everything rolls into the transportation column as eligible miles if you do accept a student and they live in a contiguous district and they have free and reduced. It also adds a 0.25 to the special ed weight in the formula if you do accept a special ed student. This program is designed to improve quality instruction and educational programs, providing families opportunities, including increased parental involvement for students whose parents work in another district, or single-parent situations, providing access to instructional programs and classes that may not be available in the resident district, offers parents the opportunity to select curriculum options that better align with their personal beliefs. You'll be hearing things like forces districts to compete against each other. Why should school districts in the state that are supplemented by taxpayer dollars be afraid to compete in their academic programs? You're going to hear that it's going to force consolidation. There's nothing in this bill that requires school districts to consolidate. It does put in the hands of the local taxpayers who have students in the local districts the ability to shape the future of their districts. We have put record amounts of funding into public education, and I voted in the positive of each of those bills. It appears that trend's going to continue, and I know I will vote in the positive. But some groups are more than happy to take the money from the taxpayers but refuse to give the taxpayers a choice within the very system that they're paying for. Individuals who constantly testify against the bill mostly say that students will leave their district for better opportunities or better programs. If you make that statement, I believe you're admitting your district may not be offering some students what they want, or more importantly, what they need. Normally, it's said that good legislation happens when neither side of the issue is happy. The status quo say the bill goes too far. The reform side says it doesn't go far enough, so I think this bill fits that narrative. Open enrollment keeps the 850,000 plus public school students in the public school system being taught by public school teachers, paying into the public school retirement system that puts in $786 million into the Missouri economy each year. With that, I will take any questions.
Senator Authur.
Yeah. Morning, Representative.
Good morning.
I'll pay you a compliment. Like you said, we've read and heard a lot of school choice and open enrollment bills, and I would say this is the best version that I've seen come through the body so far. So I know it's taken a lot of work to get here, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness around this issue.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tease out a couple things. I don't think I'm covering any new ground. I know that you've heard all of these, you've responded to all of these questions before, but on the issue of transportation, you create the fund, which is a little bit new compared to previous versions that we've seen in the Senate. One, that presumes that there will be an appropriation for that fund, which I think, that's all part of the conversation. But two, it's to reimburse parents, right? Or
well, good question.
How does that work?
Thank you for the question. It can be used when a student in a contiguous district is accepted under open enrollment. If they're free and reduced, then it can be used to reimburse the parent if they have the ability to transfer a student, normally to the nearest bus stop if possible. But if a student doesn't have access to transportation, then the receiving district, when they decide to opt in, take the responsibility of going to pick that student up in a contiguous district. And then the fund is used to help reimburse that district for their cost to go get that student.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. And you didn't say it explicitly, but is it your intent that school districts will accept students on a first-come, first-served basis apart from the preference given for siblings?
Yes, the bill says that when a parent gets their application to a non-resident district, the district is to time, date, and stamp that application, and they're to open those in the order in which they come in. So if you, as a receiving district, say you're not going to take any elementary students, but you'll take 10 high school students, then if you open that first parent request and it's not a high school student, then they are not accepted. And so when you come to the first high school students that is a high school student, then that would be the first one if they meet the guidelines of what you said you would accept when it comes to grades.
Okay.
Not a student's grade, but the grade that they're in.
Right. And then under your bill, school districts can deny special needs students, right?
Can they? Yeah. The bill says that they're not required to add staff or programs. So most of the school districts in the state of Missouri, their caseloads are full in special ed, or they may not have a program. The bill doesn't say a district can't take a special ed student, so a
But
district
it
may
does allow
decide to do
them.
that.
Yeah. I thank you for the clarification. I wanted to be sure that I understood those details. I think we've talked about this before. For me, there is sort of an inherent unfairness issue where there will be some taxpayers who have agreed to impose a higher levy, and they've invested in their schools, and then they'll be responsible for educating students from districts whose communities have not supported their schools. So that you'll see a disparity between tax rates, and I don't know how to solve for that based on the way that we fund our schools. There are going to be some communities that are willing to impose higher levies than others, but it does raise, based on conversations I've heard from some of my more conservative colleagues, I think it does raise that issue of I'm paying higher taxes to support students from communities whose taxpayers are not willing to support their community schools, and I don't know how to solve for that issue. I don't think you can.
Well, I requestfully can answer part of that.
Okay.
Again, the local taxes stay local. So if you have a high tax rate, your local taxes do not follow that student. It's up to your board and your administration on whether they participate. And so when they participate, then they know that only the state and federal dollars are following that student. So they know that their local taxes will be supporting a student who isn't paying local tax to that district. That's the reason why this isn't a mandatory, in my opinion. Everybody participates. This is an opt-in.
Yep.
That you make that decision at the local level.
Yep. Appreciate your responses. Thanks.
Thank you.
Senator Beck.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a couple questions. I mean, I have some concerns about the bill overall, open enrollment. But I want to ask you, so we have a unique situation within St. Louis County where we have the special school district, and the special school district is embedded within, and maybe you address this, I don't know, but they're embedded within the school districts, and they also have separate facilities. And a lot of times we have one of the best high needs, capabilities in the state, as far as I'm concerned. And that is funded through not only property tax, a special tax for the special school district, but also through sales tax, that the people of St. Louis County have decided that is what they want to do, and to provide those services for our St. Louis County residents. So my question to you is how does this keep, I mean, when we have teachers from other counties and stuff, they want to bring their kids, if they have special needs kids, they definitely want to bring them to St. Louis County. I talk about this all the time. We hear about this. I was a school board member. So how do we address that issue? I want to take care of all kids. I think all kids need to be educated and get the greatest education they possibly can. But we also have inequities across the board. And my question to you is, how does this keep that, when a school district can make a decision, right? But the special school district is embedded within the school district, and that is troublesome. And I've heard this concern from not only special school, but also the other regular schools. How do they go forward with this? And then the resources that we have to do to bring in St. Louis County. We're proud to support our schools there. We have some of the highest tax base in the state. But the question is, do we want to support everybody else from other counties and other areas? So.
And thank you for that question. It says in the bill that before a school district that works with special school district accepts a special ed student, they have to communicate with special school district on the funding part of that. It also says in the bill that the $80 million Parent Choice Fund is there for a district like special school district to become whole if they do take a special ed student on any of the cost of educating that student that's not covered in the high needs fund or through the formula.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, anybody else testify in support of House Bill 253? Yeah. Could we get a show of hands of people who want to testify on this bill? All right. We're going to have to definitely limit testimony. So try to be brief and try not to repeat.
Well, thank you,
Proceed.
Chair. Thank you, Committee. My name is Jeremy Cady. I'm the State Director for Americans for Prosperity. We definitely want to go on record in support of this. Like the sponsor had mentioned, we've heard this before a couple of times, so we'll just leave it at that. And if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, we will. I am going to rotate back and forth to make sure there's equal time. So anybody in testifying in opposition to House Bill 253?
Good morning. My name is Kyle Cruz. I'm superintendent at the St. Clair R13 School District. I'm joined by Clayton Buckthorpe, a parent and also a local bank executive. And we are here to testify in opposition to this House Bill 253. First, I would note Senator Authur and Senator Beck, I appreciate your comments and understand your concerns about the tax rate disparity and about the special school district. We're close to St. Louis, so we have an up close and front row seat to those issues. To your concerns, I would add another, and that is in the state of Missouri, we have an issue where there are haves and have-nots, both in terms of school districts and in terms of students. And St. Clair is what I would consider a have-not school district. We have about 2,100 students. About half of those are free reduced price lunch kids. We passed a tax levy increase in 2016, a bond issue in 2020. We still have one of the lowest tax rates in the area. We also have the lowest property values per student in the area. In our situation, it just is not a level playing field in terms of local support that is there for education. The dollars aren't there. The property values aren't there. The economic issues aren't there. On the plus side, in our district, we have an award-winning STEM program taught by an actual rocket scientist. We have an Air Force JROTC program that just gained us Purple Star designation as a military-friendly school district. We have a building trades program that just started. Our trades folks love it. We'd love to expand them all, and we can't do it because we don't have the funds and we don't have the place. Add to that, since we have the lowest tax rate, tax value, and we're so dependent on state funding, which has not changed in several years and won't change for several more, we have the lowest teacher salaries really in the area. This year already we've had 15 plus teacher openings come up. And when you have kids who have situations of poverty and difficult home lives, you need the teachers with experience to work with those kids to do the best we can to help them. And instead, every year it's a race to try to find new teachers, train them, bring them in, get them for a year or two, and then they go to neighboring school districts for higher salaries. And we're not talking $1,000, we're talking $8,000 to $10,000 generally between us and our next door neighbors who have the economic activity in those communities. If this bill becomes law, we expect to lose about 100 kids or more. Some will go to Sullivan to play softball. Some will play basketball at Union in their beautiful gymnasium. Some will go to Pacific because of their weight room. Our football team actually was undefeated recently, but we'll lose kids because we don't have the facilities other districts offer, and we can't afford to. The tax base just isn't there, and the state funding is not changing. If we lose 100 kids in St. Clair, we're talking $400,000 in state aid, and those kids won't be in one grade level where we can simply lay off a few teachers and be okay. They'll be spread across the entirety of the pre-K through 12 spectrum, including some of our kids who go to East Central. I'm almost done.
All right, your
Thank
3
you.
minutes is up. I'm going to have a strict time limit of 3 minutes.
Okay,
So-
thank you. I apologize. I'll finish up. And long story short, the haves will get more, the have-nots will get less, and kids in poverty will suffer. And my colleague has just a few words to offer.
If it's okay, we're going to go to testimony and support, and we'll come back to you.
That's fine.
All right, anybody testify in support of House Bill? Oh, questions? Oh, yeah, Senator Beck.
Thank you very much. And
yes, sir.
And you hit a bunch of issues that I think we should be addressing in this body. One of them is teacher pay is lacking across the state. This bill here, I think it's a well-intentioned bill. I think it's well-intentioned. Don't get me wrong on that, on this open enrollment. However, a lot of the other states where I see this happening at, they have a steady state funding that goes to all schools at the same amount. We don't do that here in Missouri.
We do not.
We're all across the board. My school district is, all my school districts basically for the most part are locally funded for the, 80%, 80, 90% range. Some of them are in the 60% range, but that's what the reality is. So my question is, and I hear this all the time, is like, well, it shouldn't matter what zip code you live in, your education you get. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, but why aren't we putting resources into those communities? Why are we taking people out of those communities? They're saying you have to move or go somewhere else in order to get an education.
I think we agree on that, Senator. My suggestion is let's fix all the schools. We need to fix the state funding formula. We need to address teacher salaries throughout the state. We have been between 47th and 50th in teacher salary for quite a while, and we added about 2% to state funding for education, while Arkansas and Oklahoma and the others have made much larger strides. So we are at a disadvantage not only locally, but in the Midwest region. Thank you.
And the pay is a big part of that, but it's also the attack on our teachers too, and it's relentless and it's ridiculous, and that needs to stop also. If we want our kids to actually, our state to be able to compete, I'm almost done. If we want our state to be able to compete, we need to be able to value education. We need to value education where the people live in the state. So thank you.
Once again, we agree. Thank you, sir.
And what school district were you with again?
St. Clair R13.
All right. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Next witness testifying in support of House Bill 253.
Hi, Jean Evans, American Federation for Children. We would like to testify in support of this bill, and I would also add that in states where they have school choice and open enrollment, teacher salaries are higher. The competition also drives up salaries for teachers, so we think that would be another unintended but benefit for our teachers if this bill is passed. Any questions?
Questions for this witness? Senator Beck.
How would that drive the teacher pay up higher in Missouri?
When you're competing for better teachers, because you
Where's the money coming from? Curious.
From there's plenty of money for teachers in the system.
There is.
Yes.
Vast majority of these school districts will tell you they're probably at 80% of their funding goes into salaries.
Right.
Yeah, 80% of their budget.
I will tell you that when this has happened in other states, and I can provide you with some, I can bring it by your office with some information about other states where they
I'm
have.
just curious how it's going to work here.
I would assume it would work the same way it's worked in other states.
How do we fund our schools?
Well, I think that Senator Authur has a bill to address the funding for schools, what I think would be an interesting way to approach that as well.
That probably won't get a vote today.
No, but I do think it's something that should be addressed.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Next witness testifying in opposition.
My name is Kenny Southwick. I'm the Executive Director for the Cooperating School Districts of Greater Kansas City. We represent 32 school districts and about 181,000 students. My colleague that's presented the bill, and I say colleague because he was a superintendent like myself, I think is good intentioned. He's obviously passionate about it. It's 3 years in a row it's been here, but there are several reasons that I think it's fraught with problems for Missouri school districts. Some of them have been mentioned, and I'll not go over those again. First of all, I want to say I think this takes out the most valuable resource we have in our communities, whether it's small or large, and that's our students. Some of our students will elect to leave and never come back, and I think that's a damage to all of our communities. It's been mentioned that this is not a consolidation bill, but I've heard in a different committee it admitted that it really is a consolidation bill. It will be unintended or maybe intended consequence of the bill, I'm not sure. Districts can opt in, but we've also heard that if we go 2 or 3 years and districts don't opt in, then they'll come back with a bill to try to mandate it. So this is kind of a first step, and we're concerned about what the long game is. We've talked about the funding of schools. We know that those formulas allow for local effort to be higher, and we believe that this places burden on taxpayers to pay and will dilute the dollars that we have that are available in our local school districts. I would hope, quite honestly, if we have $80 million to spend, we put that towards teacher salaries. And that we not try to look at a new program to divert our money, but we try to strengthen those programs that we have. We've heard about recruitment issues around athletics. That's going to happen. It's not going to happen in high school. This is going to happen in 5th and 6th and 7th grade. And those decisions will be made early by parents. I think this is a bill of privilege. There will be parents that can take advantage of this because they can afford to do it. There'll be mothers of 4 and 5 children in districts located all across the state that will not have an opportunity to send their kids to school, not have an opportunity to be involved because they're working 2 or 3 jobs. I'm yet to find any research, I've asked for it, that shows that open enrollment enhances students' academics. I'm open to that. I'd love to see it if it's there. This, I think, and this is my 47th year of being involved in public ed. I know I don't look that old, but it's my 47th year. And we've seen magnet schools come and go, but what we know is that when we pull kids out of the neighborhoods and out of the communities, there's less involvement, and it's more difficult to provide that educational service.
All right, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay. I do have one other thing I would like to share if I can.
Questions for this witness? Senator Bratton.
Thank you. You had mentioned that students would potentially leave and never come back. Why would they be leaving the district?
Why would they be leaving? It'll be their choice. This is a choice bill.
But I guess why would they be, deciding to take those dollars and move elsewhere?
It could be for athletics. It could be because they are disgruntled with the district. It could be their voice has not been heard in the district. What I would say is that there's a great opportunity for your voice to be heard, for those parents to stand up and try to solve the problems in their local communities as opposed to run to others.
Well, I would disagree with that. I mean, if there's no capability to be able to, pull those dollars and have that sort of impact, if the school district is not listening or being willing to have an open ear, then what's the recourse? There is no recourse. And you said you're testifying for Kansas City schools?
I'm cooperating school districts at Greater Kansas City. We have 32 districts. We go as far north as St. Joe. We go out to Knob Noster, down to Archie and Adrian, and most of the districts in between.
Okay. So, but you would see where you have school districts like in the Kansas City area that are, literally at almost 0%, 10% proficiency, and kids don't have an option. I guess, so what's the solution? If we don't do something like this, what's your solution for that?
Again, I would love to see any information you've got or any data that says that this is going to help student achievement. I've not seen it.
What is, I guess, if we don't do anything, what is your solution to fix it then?
Solution is to provide resources for all of our schools in the state of Missouri so they can provide quality programs for all of the students and let the communities thrive. Our small school districts, small communities, they're the fabric of this state. They're the majority of the school districts. Give them the opportunity, the resources to survive. If they want to consolidate, let that be a local issue.
So what's the perfect number per pupil expenditure for a district?
You can't find that in the state of Missouri.
Well, I guess so. Then how are we supposed to do anything? I mean, if we can't get actual numbers of what does it take to educate a student, then how are we supposed to do anything?
Senator, we're struggling to find teachers right now because we don't have the resources and the opportunities to hire.
Well, I disagree with the resources. Because I would love to see school districts have to really go through and display where money's going. We just heard St. Clair, they have 179 full-time teachers, almost $29 million budget. That's $162,000 per teacher breakdown. Just seeing where all these expenditures are going. And we can do that with all other sorts of school districts. And that's what I think we need to start with is really going through making sure that that money's going towards the student and going towards the teacher in the classroom to ensure that they're actually being paid what they should be being paid, as opposed to going into administration costs that are absolutely over the top and not making it to those in the classroom and then in the trenches doing the work for the students. So Anyways, thank you very much.
In fairness, that's available. I would like to say we have 182 school districts representing 322,000 students whose boards of education have signed a resolution against this bill. And we're adding every day. So I hope you'll take a look at this. You'll see the districts that lay across your senatorial districts.
We're in questions right now, so you're not supposed to be giving another speech.
I'll leave this information.
All right, next witness testifying in support of House Bill 253.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Stacy Priest, I'm representing Aligned. We are supporting House Committee substitute for House Bill 253 because it will provide students with new opportunities to access high-quality education that meets their individual needs. For us, this is all about the students. This bill has taken into consideration local policy development, responsibility of districts and applicants, and the application process. Representative Pollitt has given thoughtful consideration to a number of issues, such as capacity, transportation, special education, and extracurricular activity. The other thing he did recently, too, was to cap the participation. So keeping in mind, you know, the conversations about big sways in student population, it's capped at no more than 3% from any school district, and receiving school districts can decide if they want to participate to begin with. So there is a lot of protection in there, I think, against some of the things that have been claimed. And again, our main reason for supporting it, why we will always support it, is because it's in the best interest of kids.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, next person testifying in opposition to House Bill 253.
Good morning. My name is Clayton Buckthorpe. I'm a commercial lender and assistant vice president at Farmers and Merchants Bank in St. Clair, Missouri. I am also a proud parent of students that are currently attending the school and one that has graduated. I'm here today because open enrollment would do major damage to our hometown and our school district and districts like ours. Our bank has been a longtime partner with the school district. We sponsor a Bulldog debit card program that has supported the district financially, making it possible to purchase items that the district could not otherwise purchase. The bank has also provided interest rates for school reserves that are the highest levels available. Part of the argument on open enrollment is that competition will make schools better. It's hard to see how that would work when schools already have limited resources, or would get less, and those schools that have more resources would get more. So the poverty issue would affect that area, and this would set up an unfair competition based on the schools that have a larger tax base, leaving smaller rural schools even further behind. Open enrollment would effectively cancel out many of the good things that our community and our bank is trying to provide for our children. I urge you to vote against this potentially damaging legislation. Best laid plans, I believe, come from good ideas, but in this case, the unintended consequences would do far more harm than good. Any questions?
Senator Authur.
Thanks for your testimony. It sounds like maybe you're happy with your district, you want your student to remain there, and I think one of the points that sometimes gets overlooked is there are going to be students who want to remain, but there is a pretty significant impact. I think I heard 100, you would expect something like 100 students to leave. And the impact on the students who continue to remain, you know, can you speak a little bit to what you would expect from that?
Yes, so basically, if you figured out the 3%, that could be anywhere from 85 to 90 kids, $400,000 annually impact. That would cut down the programs available for the kids that would like to stay in that district. It would also possibly reduce staffing on teachers. And this is not across the board that it would just be high school or grade school. This could affect the entire school overall. So then you're trying to figure out which programs you would cut. So there would be a disadvantage to those who are staying in that school.
Got it. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Senator Gannon.
I would just like to make a few statements here. I've always, as a retired teacher, I've always felt that the school is the heartbeat of the community. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay. And in these small rural areas, the school is sometimes the only heartbeat of the community. So I guess my greatest fear is the small schools, possibly being forced to consolidate, break things up, and I can't support the bill.
Appreciate it.
All right, anybody else testify in support of House Bill 253?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Becky Lohman, a registered lobbyist for Missouri Century Foundation Quality Schools Coalition, and Yes Every Kid. Just want to go on record and support, grateful to the sponsors' work on this issue.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition to House Bill 253?
Good morning. My name is Matt Davis. I'm president of the St. Louis Public Schools Board. I wanted to speak in opposition particularly about an amendment that happened on the House floor and changes in the language from the original bill that affect us specifically. Originally in the bill, it dealt with school districts like ourselves, maybe it's only our school district, that are subject to a federal court order regarding a desegregation program. In the original bill, the language I was comfortable with had a provision in there that provided an opportunity on an annual basis for the Board of Education to determine whether or not we were still subject to that program and participating in desegregation programs, and if so, we could opt out of this open enrollment. That language passed out of committee but was taken out on the floor. The new language, which appears on page 18 of the bill, takes out the provision for opting out and the procedures and any definitions regarding what a desegregation program would be in effect, and leaves it incredibly vague. Our fear is that that vague language is going to lead to additional litigation against not only our school district, the participating county school districts, but also the state of Missouri. So while we would join with our fellow school districts and oppose the bill overall, we are particularly wanting to speak against that change in language, and if the bill were to go forward, we would ask that the original language be put back in, providing that opt-out provision. I think it protects everybody involved to make it a more coherent process to determine whether or not open enrollment would violate the desegregation court order.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Next person testifying in support. All right, anybody else testifying in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Authur on behalf of Missouri NEA, we would speak in opposition to House Bill 253 as it was perfected by the House. We might be the only organization that's put its chair in a different position because we spoke informationally to the bill that was presented in the committee. Even at that point, we had some concerns over the equity for students as it relates to special education, but like several issues, that's not easy for Missouri to fix. One of the things that creates a lot of tension about open enrollment in Missouri is that it's such a locally funded state. Many of the other states that have this are more reliant on state funding. But this is a serious issue, and when we looked at the impact of open enrollment provisions around the country, we noticed that there's a tendency for them to increase racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic segregation. And so we had some concerns. We give a lot of credit to the sponsor. The previous 2 years, the House has passed a version that also included language speaking to what was in the Iowa statute for 30 years, which relates to the topic of, will this have the effect of resegregating? Now, to the credit of the bill, it currently will let us know that it's doing that harm, because language that we suggested a year ago will document that harm occurring, but there's no guardrail that says, okay, at a certain point we say we need to put the brakes on this. And there was language that was stripped out in the House committee relating to those plans, and I'll just leave for the committee's consideration something that hasn't been in the bill but might help folks understand what was contemplated. This is the Iowa law that actually said, what is a good faith effort on having a plan to mitigate the concentration of poverty or minority status within your district? But we would encourage the committee to restore that kind of language that the House had passed the previous sessions. Also caution that the committee put in some language that concerns us, and that says essentially, even if we don't put in the $80 million to fund the dedicated costs, the legislation will continue and we will get partial reimbursement under the funding formula, which for special ed will be probably a lot less than actual costs. And so we feel like that actually undermines the implementation and the equity of what could be a better bill. For that reason, we're speaking in opposition and would encourage the committee to fix those issues before moving forward. I'm also happy to answer questions now or offline.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition? House Bill 253.
Good morning. My name is Eric Finley. I'm the superintendent at Jasper School District. We have a student population of about 466 kids. And as opposed to reiterating everything that's been said before in opposition to this, I think we're all pretty much on the same page that this is a bill of the haves against the have-nots. I would like to read a letter that I've received from one of my parents in my district regarding this bill. It says, I do not have an opinion on school issues very often. I want the best for our students and school. This open enrollment bill I feel very strongly about, and I'm very much against it. I'm a parent, and a grandparent of students at Jasper R5 School District. This enrollment will devastate our school district and community for several reasons. Some of our kids need more one-on-one attention to succeed. The large schools in this area may not have the staff to provide that to these kids, and these kids will not have what they need to be successful throughout school. Jasper is a small community, and with open enrollment, our community and school will die. Open enrollment will likely cause our school to have to close, and that will cause the employees of our school to lose their jobs and have to find employment in other towns and cities, causing some of us to have to drive much longer distances to work, in turn causing high fuel bills to pay, which costs households more money that we do not have. I love our school and community. My husband and I are very much against this bill. Our son and his family live here. Our grandchildren attend Jasper, and we look forward to watching them play sports and do other activities here. My husband and son both attended school at Jasper, and both are successful in their careers. My question for you, my statement for you, if I can find it, would be, have you considered how many schools potentially would have to close if this bill does pass due to funding? How many students will be uprooted from their familiar surroundings, from where they've gone to school from 5 years old on? And then I have to say, is this what's best for kids? And then I would ask you, please do what's best for kids. So.
Senator Bratton.
Yes, sir.
What is the purpose of putting a kid in a school district or school in general?
Well, you want what's best for your kid. You want to teach them. You want to teach them to learn, not just academically, but social skills.
But that's why we put them into school, is to be educated. And if they're not being educated, you know, isn't it the like sole purpose of a school to educate the kids?
Absolutely. Well,
So
not
if-
sole purpose, but yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's why we're investing in the amount of money that we do across the state, is to educate those kids.
Correct.
You know, they may be social butterflies, but not know how to read. Are they better off? You know, that's, so the,
I think it's a combination of the two. Obviously, you want to teach them academically, but there are social aspects of being in school. That's where we had so many issues with the pandemic when we sent kids home for 5-6 months at a time. Reading scores dropped because of that. Not just because of the social aspect, but the social aspect is a big part of school. We have recess, we have passing time. Kids need that. Adults need that.
well, I don't disagree that we don't need some sort of socialization, but the whole point of schools is to make sure that they're educated to help launch them into their future. So if schools are not providing that, isn't it incumbent upon the parents to ensure that they have that education and that they're able to read, write, and become productive members of society?
Yes, but our school does provide those things.
Then if your school's providing those things, then you have nothing to worry about.
Well, what I worry about is that if we take 3% of my population and send them to a different surrounding school, now I've lost that aspect of that, okay? And those kids are going to a different area for whatever reason. Maybe it's athletics. We have good athletes in our school. They're going to transfer to another school potentially. And obviously, if kids do, if we have an influx of students coming into our district, I know Mr. Pollitt said that we are not required to educate them, but I don't know a teacher or an administrator in the state of Missouri that's going to say, okay, we have these extra kids, but we don't care about them. No, we're going to figure out what we have to do, and what that's going to do, that's probably going to increase our class sizes. Financially, we're probably going to have to cut programs because we can't do it all. You know, we only have so much that we can do. We have about a $6 million budget. You know, Carthage has about a $75 million budget. You know, they're right next to us. They have an indoor practice facility for their football team. We play 8-man football. I mean, it's a give and take. I understand that, but if you want to see school pride, go to the Misha State basketball tournament and look at a 1A basketball game. I don't care if it's boys or girls.
Sure.
You look at that, and you look at how many people are in that gym. And the small schools, they bring the people. You know, we take a lot of pride in our community. We take a lot of pride in our staff and our students as well.
No, and I wholeheartedly agree with that, and that's where I don't feel this is going to be detrimental, because people have that you know, that love and passion for being a rooster or being whatever they have that love and compassion. But it also makes everyone strive to work harder to be the best they absolutely possibly can be in the industry to ensure that there is no loss. So, but at any rate, I appreciate your answers and questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
All right, next witness testifying in opposition. We do need to be brief. We only have a few minutes left, so. Can I get a show of hands? Anybody want to testify for informational purposes only? Or no one? All right, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Charlie Belt, Assistant Superintendent from the Blue Springs Schools, and this is Meg Young, our PTA Council President, Parent, and Leader. I'll be extremely brief, not going to echo what you've already heard with concerns. I would just say, in response to some of Representative Pollitt's comments about school districts being afraid to compete, we are not. Blue Springs is in eastern Jackson County, over 15,000 students, with the second highest achieving school district in the state of Missouri on the APR and our student achievement results. We compete in extracurriculars at the highest level. We are not in any way, shape, or form unprepared or worried to compete. We compete all the time in a metropolitan labor market for the best teachers and best staff in eastern Jackson County and the Kansas City metropolitan area. As far as taking money and not giving taxpayers options, we're the largest school district in the state of Missouri that stayed open in 2021 during COVID. We had an open, in-person option for our students and our parents the entire school year in 2021. Blue Springs is not afraid to provide options for our students. That is not what this is about. We do have some serious concerns, as you've heard already reflected. I won't echo those. We are concerned about the future in our schools, and that the open enrollment will not be an opt-in in the future years. What happens in 8 or 10 years when all of a sudden we're going to perfect this and make this better and make it available, so to speak, for all families? At that point in time, our school district and the ones in the metropolitan Kansas City area will have a major problem. With that, I'll let Meg Young have the remaining time as a parent PTA leader.
And I'll be very brief. As PTA, it is our responsibility and our mission to advocate for all children. This bill does not advocate for all children. It advocates for some who belong to those families that have the means and the time to be able to move them or transport them to a favored school or school district. It has been talked about that this bill will result in a loss of funds for the local community or the outgoing school. It will be a loss of funds per student for the incoming school. The planning on behalf of the teachers and the school districts will be very difficult because of the influx and uncertainty of who and how many are coming at what time. If this is not to the academic benefit of the children, and this only benefits some children who are favored, please, let's not go forward with this bill. Thank you.
All right, next witness testifying opposition, and it has to be like just saying that you're
Thank you,
opposed.
Mr. Chairman, Steve Carroll, registered lobbyist here on behalf of Missouri Retired School Teachers Association. They want to go on record in opposition to the bill.
All right, next witness in opposition.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Ron Berry, on behalf of the American Federation of Teachers of Missouri, we just want to be on the record in opposition.
Matt Michelson with the Missouri State Teachers Association, go on record in opposition to the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mike Lodewigan on behalf of the Missouri Council of School Administrators, go on record opposed to the bill.
Tammy Henderson on behalf of North Kansas City Schools in opposition to this bill.
Danny Johnson, Superintendent King City R1, in opposition of House Bill 253.
All right, anybody else? Last call. All right, that concludes our hearing on House Bill 253. I'll make a motion to go into executive session. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. I'll make a motion to bring up Senate Bill 17. Been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? I'll make a motion to do pass Senate Bill 17. This is Senator Authur's bill dealing with changing the foundation formula. It's been seconded. Call the roll.
Chairman Koenig.
No.
Vice Chair Bratton. Senators Authur. Beck. Gannon. Hoskins. Razor. Schroer. Trent. Senator Bratton.
No. All right, the bill passes. You've passed Senate Bill 17. I'll make a motion to go out of executive session. Second. Been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, I'll make a motion to adjourn.